Hey, Amy,
Yeah, Juan.
give me that beat.
It's Baseball Shangri-La with Amy Cuevas and Juan Ramirez.
What's up, party people? She is Amy Cuevas. I am Juan Ramirez. You are listening or watching Baseball Shangri-La. If you are on the audio portion of the show, listening there, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. Rate us, write us a review, help spread the word. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Hit that notification button. Give us a thumbs up. Leave us comments. We love engaging with you. And most importantly, make sure you're following us on social media, on X at BB Shangri-La, on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch at Baseball Shangri-La. Amy, why are you laughing at me?
I think we had some technical difficulties, and you being you made me laugh. I'm so glad you're my podcast partner.
Let's just say that I will never be a DJ because I'm just not organized and I don't know how to hit buttons. But
I think it was your monotone. Sorry.
yeah, it was one of those things where I was ready to go and then I realized, oh wait, we don't have that.
Oh, you're
Anyway,
human.
that's right. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. So look, we left you with another cliffhanger of an episode. Because in the last episode, Amy and I confused Amy with this stat that I couldn't figure out. And so I finally was able to get it.
Not only are we on the same page, but after scrolling multiple Twitter pages, you finally found it.
The lesson that is learned is next time I'm going to screenshot this stuff. So I will have it or I will write it down.
Or bookmark it. You know, you
That's right. So this is not a base running blunder there, Jose Ayala. So the stat that I was looking for, and I believe this takes us through the Angels series. We're not counting the White Sox series that started this week, but this is through the series against the Angelitos. Miguel Rojas had a streak where the Dodgers were 21-0 when Miguel Rojas has a hit in the game. Okay. He also has another streak where they're 14-0 when he scores a run. Another one where they're 12-0 when he drives in a run. Are you laughing at me again? I'm trying to send the clarification.
I'm my attention is divided. Will Smith is in game 1 against the White Sox, just got plunked. Sorry.
Uh-oh. Man, you are the president of many fan clubs. Like you're the defender of Kike. You are the defender of Will Smith.
And Miguel Rojas, which you have great stats for. Sorry to interrupt.
But that's what it is. So there's no base running blunder there, Jose Ayala. We finally got the stat that we were looking for. So this is an episode where, again, you guys all know that we like to give you guys updates on stories that we cover throughout the season. And I know that you have another update on a system that I was very confused on, Amy, the ABS system. When Amy sent me, hey, I want to give an update on the ABA system, and I said the All-Star ballot system.
We're not talking breaks. We're not talking All-Star ballots. We're talking about the automated balls and strike system.
So what is the update that we have on that, Amy?
So MLB is effectively tweaking experimentation in the AAA. So all signs are pointing to they're going to go with the challenge system. So a memo went out. So beginning June 25th. So by the time this episode airs, which would be Tuesday, June 25th, all AAA games will use the ABS challenge system as opposed to the full ABS challenge system, which was used previously half of the week. So there's still at least another season away from getting it right. But challenges will be made by the hitter or the catcher in real time, with the umpire receiving an answer via earpiece, as opposed to what they were doing with the full ABS, which was every call was made for the umpire. And then they gave a bunch of stats. So in addition to that, they're also changing from 3 challenges per game to 2 challenges just to reduce the frequency of high challenge games. But there was a lot of interesting stats that they threw into that memo or the article after the fact. Basically, fans believe 6 or fewer challenges is optimal, but so far, at least 40% of AAA games have used more than 6 challenges. So the fact that they're only going to have 2, I guess if hopefully they don't lose them, then they continue to do it. But stats aside, so I don't bore you guys all with the math, most people, team personnel and players and fans, are for the challenge system. Second place is human umpires making the calls, and in third, in full last, is the full ABS that has kind of been scrapped for right now. So looks like we're going with what most of the people are preferring at the moment.
Realistically, when do you think this is going to happen?
They're saying after next season. I don't know. I mean, if they keep tweaking it and they're waiting to see what people say, maybe 2026 if we're lucky. I don't know.
All right.
Are you thinking? I don't think it'll be ready by next season. I mean, they're basically saying that next season is out.
Well, look, I know people had a hard time with the pitch clock, and I thought that was fine. So I'm just like, look, I want to see it. I want to see what it looks like, and if it'll get people to stop complaining. There was a game we were watching. I think it was against the Angelitos over the weekend, where the catcher was set up on the outside, and the pitcher missed his spot, but it was a strike. But I think it was because the catcher had to move to catch it that the umpire called it a ball, because the catcher was set up on the outside of the plate. The pitch was kind of right down the middle, but because the catcher had to lunge for it, the umpire called it a ball, but it was right in the zone. And my daughter and I looked at each other and went, that was a strike. And the reason why it wasn't called was because the pitcher missed his spot. And I think this is what also contributes a lot to those umpires. I want to be fair to those umpires. I know we've brought this up before, but I do feel that sometimes these umpires get tricked by catchers. They also get tricked.
Framing is just, I mean, the stuff that they do, like, especially when I see it on TV and I'm like,
Yeah, I think they get tricked not only by the catchers, but I also think the amount of movement that is on these pitches, I think that also tricks the umpires. So I want to be fair to the umpires on that. But like I said, I want to see this in play. Let's get it over with so people can stop bitching and moaning.
I'd rather see this than I wanted to see the pitch clock. Like, I'm all for a challenge system like this, because this is what I've been wanting for years, versus I'm still out on the pitch clock.
I like the pitch clock. I didn't know that I needed the pitch clock until the pitch clock came in, because when I realized the length of games, and now games are like 2.5 hours, some are less, I'm just like, the amount of time that these players waste, it's like, just get in the box. Like I said, I subscribe to the theory of being a Dominican and just like swing the bat. You don't walk off the island.
It's not the batters that I'm worried about. It's the pitching and how it impacts how fast they have to reset. If we find over time that there's no correlation to that, then all right, I'll get on board.
Look, the pitch clock may be a contributing factor to it.
I don't think it's the only reason.
Yeah, I still think it's the velocity, because you had pitchers back in the day in the 80s that like the first guy that I think of is Greg Maddux. Greg Maddux was like always like pitching very quickly, but he wasn't a hard thrower. Like, the guy just threw strikes. It's a
perfect storm of everything, though. Like, you had the pitch clock, you got rid of the sticky stuff the year before. Now you have, we're looking at all of the spin rate, the stuff, everything has factored in more. We have so much more analytics on it. I think it's a perfect storm of everything contributing all at once. If you back one off, does that make a difference? Does it help? I don't know. I'd like to see if they're recording that information, because, again, nerd. So
no, I agree with you completely. The next update that I want to get into, because I know you're over this story, and I know the last time we talked about this, I said, I think this might be the last time we ever talk about this, or I should have known once they wore them that we were going to talk about them one more time.
We pinky promise about this? We pinky swore.
Is this the Wonder Twins activate? All right, can you let me just? I just want to point this out.
You can have it. You can have it,
because you were there. Okay, so on Saturday, the Doyers wore their City Connect jerseys. Now, you guys all know how I feel about them. The thing that I want to, I love them. Loved Funfetti. It's Funfetti.
We should have made cupcakes before this episode. Dang it.
Exactly. The thing that I want to bring up, I'm not going to sit here and harp on again the fact that I just don't like them. But if anybody watched the telecast, I'm curious if you guys agree with me, because all I saw all day was everyone was shilling for these new uniforms. And I'm not talking about fans. I am talking about players on the Dodgers. Like Jason Hayward was at an event. I think it might have been for the Dodgers Foundation earlier in the day.
They had a pre-event where they showed up and they were wearing those. Yeah.
He was wearing them, and then I know Adrian Gonzalez was wearing the Los Dodgers, and there was somebody else wearing the other City Connect. So they were out and about, and so they were out there shilling. But for me, and we saw, I think I saw Tyler Glasnow wearing a jersey of the City Connect.
So Saturday, various training staff, members of the clubhouse, the team, everybody had a version of it on. Like even just anybody you pass, they either had like I don't know what material it is. It's the dry fit. Like they had shirts. They weren't quite jerseys. There were different versions, like the cream colored, some were black. Everybody had hats. So like everybody had a variation, and it was like everybody got to pick which one they were comfortable with rocking a bit, basically.
So I don't have a problem with the players shilling for it because they were given that, and most players I know, they'll wear anything. You give them a shirt, and if it's comfortable for them, they'll work out in it. So I don't have an issue with the players or the coaches or any of that. But what was really noticeable, and I'm curious for you guys who watched the game, was how much Spectrum Sportsnet LA was shilling for these new City Connect. And this is something that I don't remember them doing when the other City Connect premiered. So you guys correct me if I'm wrong, if you remember seeing this. But to have the pregame and the postgame, Hartung and Jerry Hairston wearing them, talking, about like, hey, look at these City Connects, to have Steven Nelson talking about the City Connects. And I felt bad because he set up Nomar in a way where he asked Nomar, hey, what do you think about them? And here was Nomar's out. Nomar says, well, if they win in them, then I'm all for it. Like, I feel like all these people were trying to go around the edges and not be critical of them. And you guys tell me if you picked up on this, because here's my thing. I don't think it should be the Dodgers' job, nor do I think it's Spectrum Sportsnet LA's job to promote these jerseys. These are Nike's jerseys. Nike should be the one out there marketing these jerseys. But I feel, and I could be wrong about this, I feel the reason why Spectrum Sportsnet LA was really pushing these is because of the reaction on social media to these jerseys. The reaction that has been building up for months. The reaction that everybody hates them, nobody likes them. So that to me just it turned me off because I felt it was disingenuous in the sense the public is allowed to have their opinion, and to try to change their opinion, because then I started seeing this, Amy, people on social media who were very critical of the City Connect jersey now tweeting, now that I look at them, they're not so bad. Now I'm just like, wow, you guys have all been brainwashed. You have all been brainwashed. You have been bamboozled, hoodwinked. Plymouth Rock didn't land on us. Yeah, it's
I just want my Players Weekend jersey. Can I just please? I know we're only doing hats this year, but can we get Players Weekend jerseys with the players' fun names on the back? That's all I want.
I'm all for that as well. So that's it. That's my rant. That's my rant. I appreciate you, Amy, for letting me do that. I really don't expect, unless something else happens, I really think that might be the last time we talk about the City Connect.
Now you just jinxed it. Way to go.
I'd
say pinky promise again, but clearly that meant nothing.
Wonder Twin powers activate.
No, wait, we got to get the right side. I can't. There we go.
There we go. Look, I'm over the fact I'm not going to get one of them. I don't understand. I feel the ball has been dropped.
They were in all of the stores around the stadium this weekend, like all of,
and not cheap, by the way.
I didn't even look.
Some of the uniforms I saw, if they didn't have a name on them, well, actually, whether they had a name on them or not, were going over $2 bills. over 2 bills for those jerseys.
Oh my.
So again, again, like I'm over the uniforms, but what I did find a little distressing as I was watching the game was how much Spectrum Sportsnet LA was shilling for them. And I get it. It's the Dodgers network. They probably have a deal with Nike. Hey, we're going to help you. They have a vested interest in selling jerseys like that. But for them to be this obvious on how much they were selling this product and then to put people in a position, like I said, go back if you can find Steven Nelson literally asking Nomar, hey, so what do you think? And Nomar is just like, you know what? If they win in them, then I like them, you know? So
I feel like I'm Alice and I need to like calm down the Dormouse right now. Here, let's talk about something positive. Didn't you have a Make-A-Wish story you wanted to cover?
that is true. That is true. I want to say this.
I'm going to
because
swing the pendulum the other way for you.
you want to let them know about this Make-A-Wish Foundation?
You
thing that the
actually
Dodgers did?
messaged me, and I feel like this was something you really wanted to cover. So I don't want to steal your thunder.
So I believe was this. Yeah, I think it was before Friday's game against the Angelitos. So there was a group of kids. They were part of the Make-A-Wish Foundation that the Dodgers ended up extending a 1-day contract to them. So for 1 day, these kids could officially say they were Dodgers. Like they had contracts. Gomes came out and had them sign the contract.
Signed it.
Yeah. Gomes came out, signed the contract, and what I thought was great was Dave Roberts announced every single kid in the Dodgers media room. Mookie Betts came out and greeted them. Mookie Betts in his wrapped up hand and all that stuff. And I thought that is so fantastic because these kids now have that great memory. Like we have these adult camps that these guys, grown ass men, dressing up like they were kids and putting on uniforms.
Don't knock it. If I could afford to go, because it's a few hundred, or not a few hundred, a few thousand, several $1,000s to go. Like I would be out there, but I just.
You do you, boo. You do you, boo.
I just think it would be fun. Like, how great would that be?
I just thought it was fantastic that the Dodgers did this for these kids. I mean, I just thought that was such a great memory to have that they can now go around and say, hey, I played for the Dodgers. I was a Dodger for a day. And
like, how much did you smile when you saw it? Like, just the effort that went into it. Like, there's so much stuff in this world, and it's nice to scroll past something that's so positive.
And I know that everybody thinks I'm the Prince of Darkness, and all I do is just sit there and be like angry cat and just be like, you know,
He's got a gooey heart on the inside.
But I saw that story and it totally made me forget about Funfetti until I watched the game on Saturday and then saw all these people trying to sell me a jersey that I had no interest in buying, that I think is hideous, and I thought was
little Dormouse, settle down.
It was disingenuous. I hate when people are disingenuous. So yes, I wanted to bring that story to attention. There's another story that came to our attention that I think was a well-kept secret. Amy, do you want to give the update on Mark Langill?
Yeah, so for anybody who doesn't know, he is the Dodgers historian. He has worked with the Dodgers for the last 30 years. He started in the publications department, but the last 22, he's been the team's official historian, the first ever. And just reading this article, so it turns out he recently had a bout with, I believe it was brain cancer, brain tumors, had surgery, but it was his knowledge of the Dodgers that got him through it. But just reading this article, the stuff that is in this man's head, like he was talking about how Tommy Lasorda at one point had 2 shoe contracts, so he wore 1 cleat for each. Like, just the amount of information that's in his head. I would love to just sit down with him for hours and talk to him. But not only just the stuff he knows, but the experiences that they've had with fans or with other people. So there was a fan, she was an older woman, and she had gone to her first game with her father, I think at Ebbets Field. And so they brought her back over here. He brought out some of the memorabilia, and it was just a really heartwarming day for her to kind of relive some of those things with her father that had obviously passed. And just not just the knowledge he knows, but the outreach he can use with it for the team. Just, I don't know. It warmed my heart. I think history is such an important part of this game.
And for our audience, Amy, he is in recovery right now.
Yes. So he just returned to work, I believe, earlier this month. I want to say the 17th, because they were saying like that will also be a memorable day because that was the day he returned back to work to the Dodgers and they got him back. So.
And do we know if he's in full remission?
I am not 100% sure. I do know he did have the surgery earlier this year, and yes, it was June 17th that he returned back to Dodger Stadium to work.
I've had an opportunity to meet Mark on a few occasions and had
so jealous
and had some conversations with him. And he is a very kind and gentle human being. Was very generous with his time. Told me great stories about not only Vin Scully, but Tommy Lasorda and Fernando Valenzuela. And, until I saw that article that Plaschke wrote about him, I did find it odd that I hadn't seen him at the stadium all season because occasionally I would run into him. And it really struck me to the importance of baseball, not just baseball historians, but historians in general, on how much we depend on them. Because I don't know, maybe you were the one who told me this, but there was recently someone on a broadcast said that people that keep score, they appreciate them because they consider them historians. It might have been Hershiser who made that comment.
Wow.
So there you go, Amy. You are a historian because you keep score.
Somebody one day is going to find all my scorecards and be like, oh, we can audit these against something else. That's actually, you bring up a good point because John Thorne is the MLB historian. He's also a SABR member, so the Society for American Baseball Research. They're some of the people who drove the stats, getting the Negro League stats incorporated in with the MLB. And these people have phenomenal historical facts just in their brains. Like they've done the research as well, but just those ties to the past that I think some of us take for granted. Like everybody may have those memories from their lifetime of the players growing up, how they interacted with the game. But these people give us ties all the way back into, the previous, I can't believe I'm saying this, the previous century. But even beyond that into like the 1800s, as the game originated. And it just, the recall that they have, I'm a history nerd. So this is the stuff I love. And the fact that we have these amazing people amongst us and they can help us kind of recreate history is just amazing.
And for those of you, you might recognize who we're talking about. If you ever watch any of the Backstage Dodgers or any of the specials, Mark always ends up showing up on those, giving you guys the perspective. Like the Fernando Mania, I know he's on that one. I think he's also one on Vin Scully where they're remembering Vin Scully. But again, I think we take these guys for granted, these guys that have so much knowledge of the past. And it was one of those things until we lost Vin Scully that I think I did not appreciate enough. And that was that Vin Scully was also a historian. And that was the guy for 67 years was calling baseball. And he saw all the greats. He saw the majority of the greats, guys that I never saw play. And Vin Scully would sit there every time it was Jackie Robinson Day, would tell the story about Jackie Robinson. There's the famous story that he told about how he raced Jackie Robinson on ice skates. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, when we lost Vin Scully, we lost those stories. And this is why oral histories, I think, are so important. And we need to keep those people alive through telling of these stories.
If you're interested in that, SABR has a lot of oral histories as well.
And I think I think it's especially poignant that we're covering Mark Langill because we lost Willie Mays last week. And Willie Mays is a guy that what I've heard from people, and he was Vin Scully's favorite player. Okay. And from everything I've heard from people who watched Willie Mays play is a lot of people thought Willie Mays was the greatest player that ever lived. Okay. Now, I never saw Willie Mays play, so it just made me think of guys that I grew up watching play and who were, I know after this conversation, I saw a lot of people say Barry Bonds is now the greatest player, that living player. At that time, it was Willie Mays, and there's so many people that you go into, but we thankful to historians that can relay some of these feats because we don't have the footage. I mean, all we know, I think the majority of people, what they know about Willie Mays is, that catch that he made in center field. But then you start seeing some of his statistics, and that he was a lifetime hitter. He hit over 300. He has 660 home runs. He has 300 stolen bases. Like we have that information because of historians. And so to hear what Mark Langill went through, it just, it sucks that it takes this to appreciate the work that he does, but please,
we also have the time now to be able to appreciate it. We get that grace. You mentioned even just the storytelling from Vin in that book that I'm reading for our unofficial Baseball Shangri-La book club, Perfect Eloquence. They were talking about how Vin, he learned from Red Barber, but basically make sure when those big historical moments are coming up, he would make a point in his storytelling or the call of the play to date and timestamp it, obviously with words, on this day at this time, blah, 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 for the family to be able to recall later. He intentionally incorporated that in. And not everybody does that. That's, you can either learn to do it or it comes naturally, but he made sure to incorporate that because he was aware of the history that is involved in this game as it evolves and it moves forward. So these are all the things, like these are gifts to us that I think we don't even really realize until something like this, like to your point, reminds us that, how rich the history of this game is, that brings us all together.
Absolutely. So I'm glad that he's doing okay and that he's back at the stadium. Next time I see him, I will make sure to go out of my way and say hi to Mark, because like I said, he has been very kind to me, and I do love listening to those stories, and he seems to have a story for everything. And I think baseball lends itself really well to that kind of interaction. Let's get an update. We got some injury updates, and then Amy, you were also covering the team this weekend. So I know Dave Roberts gave you a lot of updates when they were playing the Angelitos this weekend. So what updates do you have for us, Amy?
Yeah, so he mentioned, and I think you might have some more insight into the Kershaw thing after what I bring up, but it was brought up that the last time Kershaw pitched, that there was a little bit of soreness after his last start. So he was sharing with Dave Roberts was sharing with the media on Saturday that obviously it's not a complete ball club without Clayton Kershaw, but they are erring on the side of being smart, making sure he's right when he comes back. That Kershaw's, superpower is being in the moment. So he's just focusing on each moment. And there, at least as of Saturday, there was a possibility that his rehab would get pushed back. He has no hard date for his return. That was something that Dave Roberts was adamant about. And if they need to, they'll keep just kicking it down the road till he's ready. They want to make sure that he feels good. And he said that basically we have time. They're going to defer to Kersh and the training staff, but they want to make sure that he's okay. And I think you had gotten an update today, wasn't it, on him?
Yeah, so we know for sure. So according to Dave Roberts, that was on Monday, this update from Dave Roberts, and that is that Clayton Kershaw will not throw for a week. Kershaw did undergo an MRI on his shoulder, and it didn't show any new incident, according to Roberts. Again, that's one of those, like, again, I go back to the great major motion picture, Jaws. And that is, you yell Barracuda, people go, huh? What? You yell shark, and we got a panic on our hands on the 4th of July. We brought this up with the Yamamoto thing when it took people by surprise when it was a tightness of the tricep, and then the next day we hear, oh, it's a rotator cuff. I think when Robert said this, the fact that Kershaw already went through an MRI was kind of like, huh? Why is he getting it? We went from soreness to, and I get it. It's an MRI. It's precaution. I think it is the Dodgers' responsibility to make sure that there isn't anything going. But this is, again, the reason why I'm concerned about Yamamoto, and we need to watch that space, is look at Kershaw. Amy and I, we talked about this at the beginning of the year, saying this is not a given that Kershaw was going to come back. Everybody was acting like, we're going to get Kershaw back at the end. It's like, this is not a given. This is a shoulder. He's older now, and we're seeing the signs of this.
This is like the opposite of the show's title and more of a sarcastic or Dodgers make a wish. We want him back. I think that's where some of this stuff, it's always ever evolving. Like, it may start out as one thing, and then as they, a couple days goes by, they have them tested out, any of the players. And, as we've seen with Muncy, you mentioned it when they put him on the 10-day IL, you're like, there's no way. And, maybe they were hopeful at the time, because Doc did address that this weekend too. They really did think it wasn't going to be a concern. They didn't necessarily know the extent of the oblique strain. But he was telling media on Saturday that, we truly thought he would only be on for 10 days. And he's still, I think that, the prognosis is the same, still running, fielding, doing grounders, but the big variable is swinging, and he's not swinging right now. And so they're holding off on that piece for Max Muncy. He is going stir crazy. That is something that I did get to ask about on Saturday. And like, okay, well, what do you do to counterbalance any of your players when they're going stir crazy? And he mentioned that they don't go on the road when the team travels, and it's a chance for them, whether it's Muncy, Mookie, whoever, to be around family, reset, and then also be at the stadium for those home games and cheer on the team while they rehab themselves.
Yeah, and look, we're getting close to the end of June, so and if he's still not swinging, I'm thinking now the earliest you're going to see Muncy back, maybe August.
We just talked about that a couple episodes ago. Pepio had that oblique strain during spring training, and we didn't see him till September, I think.
Till September, yeah. So look, it's one of those things where, when everybody's like, when you talk about, and I know we mentioned this in the last episode, what do you do with Landon Knack and the fact that Buehler is now down? You don't know what's going on with Buehler. You don't know how much of this is the injury that's affecting him, or how much it is that it is just going to take Walker Buehler more time to realize that he has to pitch differently, and he's just not effective out there. And
which we may see that with Kershaw too, because their bodies are different. Walker is seeing that right now. Kershaw is used to being a starter. He's used to being an ace. When he comes back, I know I've mentioned it. Would he be willing to go into the bullpen? Would he be willing to be a setup guy or something like that? And odds are he's going to want to start. So is he somebody that's an opener and we piggyback? But I think it's unrealistic to put the pressure on him that we've put on Walker, that he automatically needs to come back and he's going to be pitching 7 innings right out the gate and be lights out. I don't think that's realistic.
The one thing I will add about Kershaw, though, is Kershaw has already gone through this, and I feel because he's older, he's already gone through the experience of he has to change how he pitches.
He's never had surgery, though, so this will be a first.
And so there is so when everybody's like, well, we're going to have Kershaw when it comes to the playoffs. Look, again, this is the quandary that the Dodgers find themselves in the sense where I thought maybe at the beginning of the month, they thought, okay, we need to get position players. That's going to be our big acquisition on the trade deadline. And now for me, a starting pitcher has to be in, because you have Glass now. You don't know what's going to happen with Yamamoto. So right now, the only starters that I feel confident in are Glasnow and Gavin Stone.
And you've got to get run support for Glasnow every time he pitches.
Yeah, and the fact that that Gavin Stone is a rookie. So you're going to go into the playoffs with Glasnow, who you don't score runs for.
in tight games with the best of the best.
With Stone, who is a rookie. So you hope that Bobby Miller continues to build and stays healthy. But I look at that Philadelphia Phillies team, and I see those 3 horses that they have, Nola and Wheeler. Ranger Suarez is having a hell of a season this year. And if the Dodgers get the Phillies in the playoffs, I'm not very confident in terms of pitching matchups that the Dodgers are going to be able to match up well with the Phillies of Philadelphia. But there's still a lot of baseball left, so we don't know what's going to happen between now and then.
I'm with you, though. I think we need more pitching just because, I mean, there's no guarantee. Let's say we pick up, position players. We can't guarantee they're going to hit transitioning to a new team, etc. So if we still can't get run support and the pitchers we have are giving up runs, we can't do that in close games. So I think at this point, I'm kind of team pitching.
Well, what I find fascinating is we went from the offseason, from this being a team that is perfect, to now everybody realizing that this team is flawed.
You mean like any baseball team, and the fact that every year we have an all-star team's worth of people on our IL at any given point?
Look, I think the moves at the the Phillies, I think, are going to be aggressive at the trade deadline. And I think the thing is what the Phillies have done, and this all comes down to roster construction. I know the Phillies didn't get a lot of attention in the offseason because of the offseason that the Dodgers did. But in terms of a balanced team, you look at that Phillies lineup, that whole roster, I think that is a very balanced and really well-constructed roster. And now Andrew Friedman has a little over a month to try to fix these holes that either came from the fact that you have players who regressed, or this is something that's not talked a lot about because nobody wants to admit this, but maybe they were wrong. They were wrong in terms of how they perceived how good this player was or what this player was going to do for us. And so they have time that they can fix it. But what's interesting is now, all right, well, what do they fix? Do they fix the position player, or do they go? What's more important? Like, what do you think is more important? Is it?
And if they're really all in, if they're really all in, do you do both?
Exactly. That's another interesting question, Amy. How we're going to find out.
How in are you?
Exactly. Because if they don't make big trades or they make smaller trades, I know the fans are going to be upset.
Some fans.
The fans will be upset, and I wonder if they'll point the finger at Friedman, but we will never know because Friedman has a boss that he has to answer to. So some of these deals, it's complicated, right? You need a trade partner, and if no one's willing to trade with you, and there's going to be less trade partners because of the wild card, because you have so many teams that still have a chance to make the playoffs. That means there's less people to trade with. The price is going to go up, and we talked about this in the last episode. Friedman does not have a history of overpaying, so that goes to your question: how all in are they going to be?
But there's also no perfect team. Like, you insert humans and there's no perfect team. Like, you would think, like, we've looked at the people who are like, oh, Bo Bichette, and you mentioned his numbers have been kind of off and on. He's, like any player, this is not a dig at Bo Bichette, but like it's going to happen to everybody. I just, you could go out and you could buy somebody, buy their contract, whatever. I don't want to make it sound like we're buying people, but like, and it may work out, it may not. And then what? Okay. So let's say they go all in at the trade deadline, then, and people don't perform the way that they thought. Then what?
Yeah, exactly. But then in the end, what's going to happen is at the end of the season, it's going to be another season where the Dodgers didn't win the World Series, where you're going to ask the questions that we were asking at the beginning of spring training are going to resurface again. To me, it was never a good sign, and we talked about it on this show. For them to move off of Gavin Lux as quickly as they did, I think was not a very good sign for the season, because it just, look, you guys did this. The reason why you guys didn't extend Trey Turner, the reason why you guys didn't re-sign Corey Seager is because you thought Gavin Lux was your shortstop, or maybe not necessarily your shortstop of the future, but he could play shortstop.
But if they leave him there and he still can't continue to play the position, then they're going to get it from the other side of like, okay, one, you should have passed on him, but two, what are you doing playing him there? And this is where I kind of go into like, there's no perfect team, there's no perfect player. You can do what you want to stack it, but at the end of the day, this is where, for me, how I watch baseball, I'm just going to watch it game by game. And man, I hope we get to the postseason. I hope we make it to the World Series. But at the end of the day, like, I don't want to put all my eggs in the postseason basket before we're even there. And it's no fun to watch the games right now. Like, I enjoy watching baseball. I want to continue to do that. And we have the team we have. If they bolster it, great. If they don't, it's the team we have.
But I going back to your question, I think the answer's still the same though, Amy, and that is the assessment was wrong because you put Gavin Lux there thinking that he could play shortstop. Okay, he can't play shortstop.
Now, play devil's advocate. What do you do though? Because everybody wanted Ohtani, they had to clear payroll, so you guys got Ohtani, but this is the fruits of what you guys reaped. Like, this is the fruits of your labor. We got Ohtani. Now what? We couldn't afford to do all of it. So you either get the big player that you guys all wanted and then bolstered along the way. Like, we still got Yamamoto. We still got Glass now. We got Teoscar, which I think you have an update on him too. But like, something's got to give.
That's a question that I don't know if we're ever going to get the real answer to. Because if the Dodgers, let's say, don't get Bo Bichette, or if Mookie still has to end up playing shortstop at the end of the season or going into the playoffs, we're never, I don't think, going to get the real answer as to, did Andrew Friedman try to get a shortstop and either he couldn't pull off a deal?
Who was available?
But what I'm saying is let's say Bo Bichette was available. Did we not get Bo Bichette because it's Andrew Friedman didn't want to give up as many assets to get Bo Bichette? Or did ownership come in and say, no, don't do that?
Or did they also take a look at how he's producing and what his trajectory looks like? And they're like, no. Like, how much of that factors in too? Because they're going to take into account, how much can we fix a player? How much can we not? And I haven't looked at his numbers recently, but if they are not as great as they were last season, that's also going to factor in, because again, they're still going to get that thrown in their face. If they make the investment and it doesn't pan out, then what? You're never going to make anybody happy. So I think at that point, to me, that's where, like, okay, figure out how you want to enjoy baseball, because none of us have control over these purse strings. So how do you want to enjoy game after game? Do you want to be upset about all this stuff? You can. That is everybody's right to watch it how they want to. I know that doesn't work for me.
Well, I think the issue is everything points down the road, right? Like, we'll watch the games, but what's going to happen is if we come in the playoffs and they end up, everything that you say ends up happening where they don't score enough runs, or they end up, the pitchers give up too many runs,
then
it's going to be the same thing as last year, right?
You mean baseball, where you literally cannot buy a World Series. Like, that's literally baseball.
Right. But you're going to deal with their fans and the frustration that, whether it's rational or not, but you're going to have the frustration where, okay, we got these players. We did something very different than last year, and we thought this was going to be different. And I think what's happening right now is we're not seeing, like, at least right now, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
But that's a choice, though. That is a choice to see it that way. And on top of it, okay, I guess I look at it the perspective from the other side. Okay, we did everything we could, and we got the same result. Like, it doesn't always have to necessarily be on the negative side. Even if, let's say, it doesn't work out in October, they did everything that they could. Like, and it's still, like, that literally is baseball. Like, I know I just said it, but like, you can't buy a world championship. I mean, you could cheat your way to one, but you can't buy it.
I agree with that statement, but I think it goes back to a question that I just don't think we're going to have an answer to. And that is what you just posed. Did the organization do everything? Because if
I guarantee you, they're doing more than some organizations out there. I think there's been an argument back and forth on Twitter recently about some of these, like, lower market teams talking about the paycheck base, or the pay, whatever it is, the checkbook baseball. And it's like, all of these owners have the money to pour money into their teams. Our team is doing that, and some of the fan base is still dissatisfied. That's a choice. That is absolutely a choice when you have a team that is actually pouring stuff into their product onto the field versus another team out there that's just, cashing checks. Whoever comes to the game's great. Whatever dividends we get, we buy the players we buy. We have an ownership team that is pouring into this organization. And if you want to be frustrated with it, if you want to ask those questions, you're still not going to be able to change the outcome at the end. We don't have control over that. And that's where I guess I see it from a different perspective of like, all right, cool. They're going to do everything that they can. You may not you, but the general you may not agree with that. And at the end of the day, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to go buy a team? Because I know I can't afford one right now.
All right. So before we wrap things up, I do just want to go ahead and give the update on Teoscar Hernandez. Teoscar Hernandez, by the time we're dropping this episode, is expected to play in the game tonight.
Hopefully he's back.
Tuesday. Against Las Medias Blancas, but he was not. The reason why he didn't play on Monday night's game is because he was in the Dominican for personal reasons. So hopefully everything is fine with Teoscar.
More flights.
And exactly, and he's able to rejoin, because I know there was concern in the Rockies series when they took him out in the middle of the game, and everybody was just like, why'd they take out Teoscar? And then Dave Roberts comes out there and goes, I just wanted to give him rest. And I know that was not an answer that sat well with a lot of people, because it's like, bro, we're trying to win the game and you're taking him out for rest. So, but that is a philosophy, and that is a reminder once again of how long this season is. So, very important questions that you brought up, Amy. And of course, we still have almost 3 months of the season left. A little over 3 months of the season left to figure out what they do.
And we're 60 episodes into our first season. So look at us
there we go. 60 episodes. If you guys thought we were going to get tired of this and stop, you're wrong. You're wrong. We're going to keep doing this. Even though if nobody listens to us, nobody watches us, Amy and I are still going to do this show.
We'll just keep talking to each other. And you made your Jaws reference earlier, and I've got my Jaws shirt on. I will say the last time we were in the press box together, Juan showed me a photo of a shark attack victim from the 50s, and I identified the victim, and then he called me a nerd. So just wanted you all to know that.
Yeah, she was totally a nerd. But hey, Amy, this is here's the swimming with bow-legged women. So,
cheers.
Any last words before we wrap things up?
No, let's win this series.
All right. So for those of you listening on the audio portion, please make sure you're subscribed to our podcast. Rate us, write us a review, help spread the word. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Hit that notification button. Give us the thumbs up. Leave us comments. We love interacting with you guys. And most importantly, make sure you're following us on social media. On X at BB Shangri-La. On Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch at Baseball Shangri-La. She is Amy Cuevas. I am Juan Ramirez. Nos despedimos con un beso. Amy, say goodbye to the people.
Goodbye, people.